You are listening to I Survived the Wild Outdoors podcast, where real outdoors men and women share their heroic tales of survival. I'm your host, Brad Mathewson, and this is their story. Hello, everyone. Today, we've got a gripping and unforgettable story, straight from the rugged panhandle of Idaho. My guest, Leon Brown, is a well-seasoned hunting guide and owner of Clark Fork Outfitters. Leon's no stranger to the challenges that come with hunting and camping in the backcountry. But the spring of 2024, both black bear and terrain would test him like never before. Leon typically starts his day by taking a few dogs and his clients, checking bear bait stations he has scattered throughout his permanent area. He looks at the trail cam pics, and if there's a good bear he feels isn't too far ahead of him time-wise, he'll turn a few dogs loose on the track. Today was a little bit different. When the dogs finally caught up with the bear, it wouldn't tree. It just kept walking and only stopped to fight his dogs. When the terrain turned a bit more rugged, his clients declined to go any further, but they encouraged Leon to track down the bear and finish the hunt. Little did he know, hours later, he would find himself in a fight for his life with a bear that wasn't backing down. Can you tell us what happened that day, Leon?
Hello. My name's Leon Brown, and I am an outfitter in northern Idaho. Our business is Clark Fork Outfitters. I'm 49 years old. I've been living in North Idaho all my life. My dad started me into the outdoors at a very, very young age. I think I went on I know I went on my first bear hunt with dogs when I was 4 years old, so that would have been 45 years ago. And I've still got the same bloodline of dogs. I mean, obviously there's been outcrosses and other things that have gone on in the meantime, but I've still got the same bloodline of dogs that my dad started out with, which were UKC registered plots. And he got the first descendants to the dogs I own today, around 1971 or so. So probably a little over 50 years ago. And the story that Brad has asked me to talk about today is one of a bear hunt that we did in the spring of 2024, and I was guiding two gentlemen from, I believe they were from Nebraska. They were from the central part of the country, a little bit older guys, and they were probably in their 60s, I would say, late 50s or 60s, and were not really used to rough or steep mountains because they have no mountains where they're from. You know, they're from Nebraska, and I don't think these guys either one of them had ever really hunted out of state at all. This was kind of a kind of a bucket list hunt for them to go do something in the mountains out west. And so on that particular day, I also had an old friend of mine named Doug Setters, and Doug is 85 years old. He still runs a pack of bear dogs in Idaho. He's probably the oldest man that I know of that actually hunts by himself in this country with hounds, or that I've ever known who did it. And so that morning, I met the hunters and Doug at a parking area, and we went on up to some bait stations that I had, and one of the first stations we went to had a nice sized chocolate boar that had hit the bait during the night, and so it was decided we'd go ahead and put dogs on that bear, and we turned out, and can't remember for sure exactly how many dogs we put down to begin with, but it was somewhere in the neighborhood of about 8 or 9 dogs, I believe. And it didn't take them too long, and they caught up to this bear. But he was not in any kind of frame of mind to take to a tree or stop or do anything that we were hoping he would do anyway. And so he started fighting dogs, and Doug and I both immediately knew that this bear was caught on the ground. You could tell by the way the dogs were barking and just moving at a slow pace through the woods that this bear was just walking along, and he was going to fight them dogs and so on and so forth. And I ended up going around to a lower road. So we were on a main divide where we started this race off of a bait, and he went down into the one drainage, and that drainage has a road in the bottom of it. So I went down in there, and as I got down in there, I noticed that one of the dogs, several of the dogs had kind of stopped along the way. So I stopped and called for them, and they started coming out to me. And first one got there, and it had been bit by the bear, and the second one got there, and it had been bit by the bear, and on down the line, there was multiple dogs that I rounded up on that loop down through there, who'd all been beat up by this bear. And finally, I had an opportunity to send in a dog that I had not sent from the beginning, a dog named Trixie, and she was a little bit footsore from hunting earlier in the week, and that was why I didn't turn her loose at the beginning. But I knew I needed a fresh dog in there. And by now we're getting several hours into this hunt. And but I finally got an opportunity to get Trixie into the race, into the hunt. And she got with the other dogs, and the bear turned and he headed back for that divide. And Doug was up there on the divide, and so I instructed those guys to try to get in. I told them where it was going from what I could tell, and I instructed those guys up there to try to get in front of that bear and see if they could get a shot at it when it crossed up on top, back, because it was going over into a very big unroaded area. Well, they were able to see the bear cross the road up on top, but nobody was able to get there in time to get a shot. And the bear got across and into some, like I say, very unroaded, remote country. And as the day wore on, we had a few more dogs that came back that were wounded, stopped along the way. And as it got later into the day, I knew I had to get over there and try to get in to the dogs. There was not that many of them left at this point. I think there was, when I left the road, there was still 3 dogs that were baying the bear. And one of them was Trixie, the fresh dog that I had put in. The other one was Max. He's Trixie's littermate brother, and he's pretty much my lead dog. And then there was a young female there I call Thelma, who was a 2-year-old. And there was a couple dogs that were still coming behind, but they had kind of fallen back. And so when I got, when I decided I needed to go, I talked to the hunters, to the clients, and I said, here's the situation. It's about 1.5 miles out this trail, and then down off in a big canyon where the dogs have this bear. And at this point it was still walking, it was still moving. And I said, I've got to go down in there and try to get these dogs. And they both indicated to me that there was no way that they thought they could make that hike. It was just too far and too rugged of ground, and too far out of their element, what they thought they were capable of confidently doing. So I went ahead and went on my own. And I told him, I said, if I get the chance, I'm I'm gonna I'm gonna kill this bear because it's chewed up pretty much every dog that we've put on it all day long, and it needs to happen. And they were in full agreement with me. They were like, oh yeah, you definitely need to kill that bear if you get the chance to do it. And they'd seen what he'd done to all them dogs. And, so I headed off down the trail, and so as it would be, Doug had actually headed out the trail before me because he had some dogs that were coming behind that hadn't quite made it to that trail yet, and he was going to try to catch them. So I headed out that trail fully expecting to catch up with Doug because he really didn't have that big of a head start on me. And he is 36 years older than me, so I kind of thought I could probably catch him, but I never did. That old man can still walk pretty good for an 85-year-old. But I finally got out there, and of course I'm tracking the dogs with a GPS tracker, and all of a sudden my Max dog just stopped out there, and Max really doesn't have any quit in him at all, and so obviously I immediately feared the worst. When I saw that he was stopped, I thought, oh geez, that bear either killed him or hurt him so bad he can't walk or something. And Trixie and Thelma kept going, and they came around into a canyon, and they just stopped. And I was standing up at the top of the ridge, and the thermals were starting to blow downhill into that hole, and I thought, I've got to get over in the other fork of the draw because where the bear was, he was in a draw that came up and forked right off of the end of the ridge I was standing on, and the bear had went back into the right-hand fork of it. But I knew with the thermals pulling down off of the top, if I got very close, that bear was going to smell me. So I dropped off into the left-hand side of the draw, and I went down that. And I couldn't hear the dogs at all at that point. But my tracker said they were still there. And this was, by now it's probably 4, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I think I left the truck around 3 or 3:30. But it was the first time that this bear had actually stopped all day long. And I did not have a rifle. Typically when I'm guiding, I don't carry a rifle. I carry a handgun. And so what I had is I had a 454 Casull and shoulder holster, which was actually in my backpack, and then I had my little auto loader in my bino harness on my chest. Well, I got around below the dogs and come back up the fork of the draw that they were in, and when I started getting real close, when I got within, well, obviously as soon as I come around the corner where I could look up in the drainage that they were actually in, once I got below them, I could hear them very well once again, and they were still barking every breath. I knew they still had the bear caught. So I got up and started coming up in below them. And when I got within about 50 yards of the dogs and the bear, maybe the last 30 yards, I still could not see anything. Very thick in there and rather steep. And but it was thick enough that I couldn't close that last 30 yards or so with my pack on and everything, just because I was making too much noise. Now in hindsight, looking back on it, I think that bear kind of knew I was there and just didn't care. He was to the point he was done running, walking away from anything else. He just had made his stand. And so I took my pack off, my main pack off, and I grabbed my casoul out of there, and I crawled on hands and knees up in there until I got to where I could see the dogs, but I couldn't see the bear yet. And they're just barking every breath right forward. And then finally, I saw the bear's head raise up just a little bit over like a mound of dirt or whatever that it had gotten probably upturned by a root wad from a tree years ago or something. But he was laying behind that. And I just saw the top of his head and his ears kind of raise up and then sink back down. And so I knew where he was at that point. And he was probably, I don't know, 30 feet from me, up the hill, maybe somewhere in that neighborhood. And, Trixie and Thelma were probably 10 feet from the bear, 5 feet from the bear. I don't really know. But they weren't very far from him. And so this went on for a while, and I'm trying to get to where I feel comfortable. I'm laying on my stomach, basically, and I'm trying to get where I feel comfortable with a pistol shot, and I've killed quite a few bears with a handgun, but I don't shoot them as much as I used to back in the day, and I don't really hunt for myself that much anymore, really, especially not with a handgun. But anyways, finally that bear kind of, I don't know if they got a little too much in his face or whatever. That bear kind of bluff charged out at those dogs and ran them back towards me, and then just was all bowed up and whatever. And I mean, in realities, it was probably only a 150 to 200 pound bear or so. I'm gonna put him at 160, 180, probably. But he's a spring bear, so he's still pretty lean. He would have fattened up to be a 250 pounder in the fall or something, But the dogs backed off, and the problem was, even after he came out from behind that mound of dirt, I had the dogs right between me and the bear, and I didn't feel comfortable taking a shot because I wanted to try to head shoot him. And finally, he started backing up back into the spot where he was, and he backed up to the hill far enough that I had enough separation between the top of Trixie's back and where that bear's head was that I decided to go ahead and take a shot. And I felt pretty darn good about it when I pulled the trigger. And the bear, and that is probably one of the last clear memories I have until after the ordeal was over. Or I should say that started into a couple seconds there where things started happening so fast that I can't say that I recall exactly what all transpired in that couple of seconds there. But the best I remember it, the bear rolled over kind of backwards when he took the bullet. Trixie ran up there and kind of grabbed him or whatever, got right in his face anyways. And he come down the hill chasing Trixie. I shot once or twice as he was coming down the hill chasing Trixie. I was in a little bit disbelief he wasn't dead because I felt like I had made a pretty good shot. But Trixie ended up turning and running right past me, and the bear was chasing her. And they come by, just a few feet below me. And as the bear was coming at me, I guess he figured he couldn't catch Trixie. So, but there I was. So he just, as he was running by, he just changed course when he was 3 feet from me and just reached out and latched onto my lower leg. At that point, I put the gun over the top of his rib cage and shot down through his rib cage because I couldn't I couldn't really shoot him where I wanted to, up in the neck and head area, or even right up in the front shoulders where I could break him down or break his spine close up to the skull. I had to just kind of shoot him through the rib cage, and that did cause him to let go of my leg just momentarily. And so as I was, of course, he had almost jerked me off of my feet, because as I mentioned earlier, it was very steep there, and he had come around below me at that point and pulled me downhill. So I'm trying to regain my feet at that point. And the bear, after he took that shot through the ribs, it kind of balled him up for just a half a second. But then just as I was kind of regaining my footing or whatever, he just reached up and tried to like bear hug me, tried to wrap me up. And I had scratches down both of my arms from his claws, from him trying to wrap me up. And when he did that, I just stuck my left hand out in front of me to push him away. But he managed to latch onto my hand when that happened. And so I cocked the pistol again and I stuck it, but now I've got him pushed back away from my body at least. And so this time I stuck the barrel of the pistol right against kind of the base of his neck and shot. And that pretty much killed him. But he fell to the ground and he was still clenching my hand in his teeth, and I couldn't get my hand out of his teeth. And at one point he just did one of those little nervous reactions where he kind of snapped his jaws. And when he did, I was able to pull my hand out of his mouth, with the exception of my thumb didn't quite get completely clear. And when his teeth snapped back shut, he had my thumb, the end of my thumb, pinched between his canine teeth. And his canine teeth didn't go into my thumb, but one was on the pad side of my thumb and one was on the nail side, and they were crushing down on it so hard it looked, after the fact, it ended up looking like I'd hit myself on the thumb with a hammer. My whole thumbnail just turned purple and fell off. And but anyways, when I finally, I'm continuing to pull on my hand to try to get it out of his mouth. I ended up, I had a Wells Lamont work glove on with the Velcro strap that you wrap around your wrist, and I was pulling on that thing so hard, I ended up ripping my hand out of the glove with the glove still clenched in his teeth. And I don't remember if the Velcro popped or if I just somehow ripped it through the wristband, but either way, my hand finally came free. And at this point, I immediately headed down the hill, down to my pack, to my main pack, and I got my trauma kit out, and I wrapped my leg. I rolled up my pants leg and wrapped my leg with gauze and some electrical tape. And that's something I'll mention along the way. If you've got a trauma kit or something that you carry in your pack, make sure there's some tape in there, because I was just lucky that I had some electrical tape in my pack, because they didn't give me any medical tape in my trauma kit. I'd never opened the thing up before. It's in a sealed bag, and whatever. Well, I got all this stuff out and I'm looking at it and I'm like, there's no tape here. Well, luckily I had a roll of electrical tape, so I was able to tape a big gauze pad on my calf where it had bitten me, and got that bleeding not stopped, but slowed down at the very least. And then I wrapped my hand up as best I could and gathered my pack and stuff and went back up to where the bear was. And then I had to try to get this bear field dressed and tagged and everything. And the problem was he had died on that steep slope right between two little saplings that were right up against his rib cage on both sides. I couldn't roll him either direction, and all there was below me was just more steep, brushy, thick stuff. but just above the bear, there was a kind of a, I won't call it flat, but a more level area about 6 feet around, where I knew if I could get him up on that, I could get him laid over and get him field dressed. So I ended up pushing his back legs, his back feet up and over his head, and basically, getting him to do a somersault forward. Got him laying on his back up there. But all this whole while, my left hand was just swelling up and hurting worse and worse by the second. And for whatever reason, my hand hurt 10 times worse than my leg did. And I was really amazed later to find out I didn't have any broken bones in my hand, because I was sure I did. But once I got the bear flipped over, I got in my trauma kit, and there was a pair of rubber gloves, surgical gloves, in my trauma kit. So I put one of those on my hand that had the puncture wounds in it from being bitten by the bear. And I field dressed the bear and tagged it. And that was about all I could do. I needed to get out of there. I knew I needed to get to a hospital. And so I marked the bear's location on my GPS. And I have what they call the inReach system integrated into one of my Garmin GPS units. It's the 200i. It tracks your tracking collars for your hounds, and also will work as an inReach. So I sent my wife a inReach message at that point, and I told her what had happened, and I told her I needed help. And I hiked up out of there. It was far enough down in there that when I left the trail at the top, I could not hear the dogs. They were 1,000 yards, horizontally out from me, but they were probably a good 500 feet in elevation below me as well, or maybe more. And so I hiked out to the trail, and once I got on the trail, out to the truck, and of course that took me quite some time. It was 1.5 miles once I hit the trail back to the truck, and I was probably 1 mile down off in that hole, or something of that nature. Maybe only half or 3/4 of a mile, I don't know, but a good ways, and all uphill. And by the time I got to the trailhead, there was 5 trucks sitting there, and a lot of the people that I've known and hunted with, and people that have guided for me, and so on through the years, just came running to help me, and I'm very thankful for that. But I ended up going to the hospital after we kind of got everything situated, and two of the guys that have guided for me and another buddy went in and got Max, the dog that had quit, and luckily he was not hurt badly. He apparently was just so exhausted. I think by the time he quit going after that bear, he'd been after it for at least 10 or 12 hours, because it was pretty early in the morning when we started this whole ordeal. And then 2 of the other guys went down to the bear and got him quartered up, and the guy that had went and got Max circled around and grabbed a load of meat as well. And then my son took a motorbike and went around the bottom and rounded up a couple of the dogs that had been behind that had fallen out. And then he was going to try to haul the meat out on the motorbike for the guys, but started having motorcycle problems and had to just get out of there. But those 3 guys walked out to a different trailhead down at the bottom, and another one of the guys that's guided for me in the past, he picked them up there. And so between all those guys, they got all the dogs rounded up, and I think I got a message from them. I was at the hospital by then, I think I got a message from them right around daylight that they had the bear all out and all the dogs were safe and out of the woods and this and that and everything. And that was about the same time I was being released from the hospital. They x-rayed my hand every which way they could. And luckily for me, there was no broken bones. But the swelling was just insane. My hand was 2 or 3 times as thick as it should have been. And they, cleaned all my wounds and everything and put me on some pretty high dose antibiotics, IV antibiotics, to make sure I didn't get an infection started. And yeah, that's pretty much the story. If I had it to do over again, I definitely wouldn't have. I definitely would have had a rifle with me that day. Like I say, I've killed a lot of bears with a handgun, but I don't shoot them as much as I used to, and my eyes aren't quite what they used to be. And I mean, those are all just excuses, but the bottom line is, I think I would have been I think there's a good chance I wouldn't have had quite the outcome that I did if I'd have been shooting a rifle instead of a pistol.
So I got a couple questions for you, Leon.
Yep.
So when you snuck up on that bear and it's behind that blowdown or root wad or whatever it happened to be behind, did your dogs know that you were there or no? Or are they so focused on the bear at that moment?
That young dog knew I was there because she come running down the hill to me once, that Selma dog. Trixie never turned around one single time, but I think their sense of awareness is probably greater than ours, but they're so focused on their job, on what they're there to do, that they just, a lot of times they don't know. I mean, it may have just been a coincidence that she ran right to me after. Well, one thing's for sure. As soon as she heard the gun go off right behind her, then she knew I was there.
So
but until that point, I can't say for sure whether Trixie knew I was there or not.
Okay, so when you shot, she knew. So when that bear started chasing her, do you think she was just running away, or do you think she was going to you for safety?
I think she was pretty much just running from the bear.
Okay.
But I don't know. I mean, that's a good question. I think there's a good chance she may have been coming to me because she knows there's strength in numbers, I guess.
Okay.
So
and the
whatever. Maybe it's just instinct. But
the reason I ask this is because I've read so many stories through the years, and guys that aren't running dogs for bears, guys that are just a trapper or just a hunter, and they take dogs with them. And some guys say, I don't like to take a dog with me because I guess there's 2 schools of thoughts. One, that dog could alert you that there is danger there before you notice because they have a greater awareness of what's going on, and their scent is, the sense of smell is way better and hearing is better and everything else. But secondly, if a bear, all of a sudden they do encounter a bear, maybe out ahead of you, you can't see him, they're going to come running back to you and bring that bear with them, basically. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. It's, I mean, generally speaking, and I think it would be totally different when you're talking about pet dogs, that are not really hunting dogs.
Yeah.
I think that type of dog is probably more likely to just come running back to you.
Okay.
Out of, I mean, I've been doing, well, as I said in the beginning, I've been doing this for 45 years, and in most of the scenarios I've seen where a bear's fighting dogs on the ground, the bear nor the dogs pay really much of any attention to you.
Okay.
I mean, if the bear knows you're there, he'll usually try to leave. But but all in all, hounds are typically totally focused on their job, and they really don't pay much attention to you. Their full attention is on that bear. And really most of the time, if you shoot and or even if you haven't shot, it doesn't really matter. But when the bear starts chasing dogs, they just run whatever direction they can to get away from the bear. I've never really noticed where many of them were running to me, and it's not something that I would really, I wouldn't say that's not the mark of a great bear dog, is a dog that's going to come running back to you when
okay.
when the bear starts,
it might be someone's pet instead of a working dog.
Right. That'd be more but I would say, I don't no real reason to think Trixie was really coming to me.
Okay.
For safety or anything. I don't really know though. It's a scenario I've never really had anything quite exactly like that. I've had similar things happen. I had to shoot a bear about 5 years ago that literally died in my lap. But that bear, is once again is a wounded bear scenario.
Yep.
And that bear had just the hound that it was tussling with had just gotten away from the dog, and about that time my feet slipped out from under me. I slid down into this hole where the bear and the dog had been fighting, and the bear looked up, and there I was 5-6 feet in front of him, and he was mad and looking for something to chew on, and there I was. So here he came, and but that scenario, the bear and the dog, up until the moment that the bear saw me come sliding into that hole 5 feet in front of him, he never paid me any mind, and the dog didn't either. When the dog got away from him, the dog ran the other way. Okay. But I wouldn't necessarily say she was coming to me.
Yeah,
I think she was just running.
Yeah, I always wondered, because I'm a bear hunter too, but I'm a bait sitter, and this whole world of dogs and stuff is all new to me. And yeah, I was always wondering, like, even when a bear is treed or bait up on a ledge where it can't get, it feels threatened or whatever, is it aware that there's a person there? Or is it just basically focusing on the dogs? And
well, one thing I can tell you is if you're trying to get in on a bear that's being, chased by dogs and whatever, you would kind of think that you could probably, maybe not have to worry about the wind and that sort of thing as much as you would with, say, a whitetail buck or something.
Okay.
And that is absolutely untrue.
Okay.
I don't care how many dogs that thing's got around it, this, that, and the other thing, it will still smell you. If you don't have the wind right, that bear is still going to smell you, and he's still going to leave before you get there.
Oh,
You've
really?
got to have the wind, or it isn't going to work.
Okay. Yeah. I wouldn't have known that. I would have thought they would have been just so focused on that they wouldn't have paid any attention. Huh.
Yeah, I think there are scenarios where a bear can get to that point where he's so, he's got his hands full so much with the dogs that he just doesn't have time to worry about whatever other threats might be out there. But one thing I can say is it's amazing how able those bears are to deal with. They can deal with a whole pack of dogs.
Oh yeah.
And still pretty much do what they want. If they decide they're going to go to the next canyon, they're going.
Yep.
And it doesn't really matter what those dogs do. They're not going to keep him there. There's exceptions to that rule, but the bottom line is, those bears, they're way more than capable of taking care of themselves, and they can hold off a whole pack of dogs. You can have 10 dogs there, and that bear isn't under that big of duress.
Okay.
It's just, yeah. So even though he's got his plate full,
Yep.
his senses are still working, and he's still fully able to take care of himself.
Okay. So, were your dogs all okay in the end?
Mm-hmm. Yep, all the dogs ended up being fine.
Okay. What about you? How did you fare in the end?
Obviously there was nothing there that was going to be a permanent injury. Something that I couldn't heal up from. Luckily it didn't break any bones. I didn't get any infections. I think that was on a Thursday, and I was back to work on Monday.
Wow.
Something like that. Of course, I'm, wasn't 100%, but
no.
but like I said, it's amazing. Like my hand, and I'll send you some pictures.
That'd be good.
When we get off the phone here or whatever. But my hand hurt 10 times worse than my leg did. And I thought for sure when they x-rayed my hand, they were going to tell me, oh, yeah, you got 3 fractured bones in your hand or something. Nope, I didn't have any broken bones. But for the longest time, even after the swelling had went down and the wounds had healed up, my hand just hurt still. Like making a fist or whatever, just that motion.
Yep.
Every time I would move my hand, it would hurt. And if you want to have an idea of how strong how strong a bear's jaws are, when he bit me through the hand, of course those work gloves that I was wearing, they have kind of a cloth or nylon back on them, but the front it's a leather palm, and I had a hole in the center of the palm of my hand that was, I don't know, as big around as a dime. It didn't put a hole in my glove, though. It shoved the glove through my hand.
Yeah, the glove probably helped save you quite a bit.
Yeah,
for sure.
It probably did. So actually, I still have the glove. It's got a little tiny. It tore the leather just far enough that you can see that there's a tear in it.
Yep.
But you couldn't get a pencil lead through the hole in the glove. But the hole in my hand was as big around as a dime, And so he was biting down on my hand so hard that it shoved that leather right through my skin.
Oof.
It just separated whatever, just mashed a hole in my hand. And so the bite strength that they have is, I've always known it's significant because I've doctored up a lot of chewed up hound dogs and this and that and everything. But I'll tell you one thing, after being bitten by one myself, I've got a whole new respect for what them dogs do.
Yeah.
Because they go in there and they get bit by those bears and stuff, and they go right back for more.
Yeah.
And,
just think about, how tough they got to be to keep after it. And then after how many hours and miles that they put on, that dogs themselves, especially bear dogs, they're like athletes. They're little marathon runners.
Oh, they're super athletes.
Yeah, they got to be super tough to take all that and then keep wanting more. It's insane.
Yeah, and it's like I said, I have a whole new respect. And I've always understood how dangerous what those dogs do is, and this and that and the other thing. But I've got a whole new respect for their bravery and whatever after being bit by a bear myself. I had come close a couple times before this incident, but I'd never actually felt the power of a bear's jaws until that incident. And boy, after feeling it, I'm like I said, give you a whole new respect for bears and for bear dogs. They're both very formidable, and and make us look weak. I'll tell you that. You know, I mean, the hike I took to get down in there, I mean, it was probably 3 miles round trip or something, or, you know, well, I know, well, it was 3 miles round trip just on the trail. So it was probably like four or 5 miles. I didn't even cover a small fraction of the ground that that bear and them dogs had covered that day, though. I mean, you know, even when you're tracking dogs with GPS, you know, the GPS only records so much, and especially in real mountainous terrain like this.
Oh yeah, the up and down.
Yeah, I mean, I've had more than once. I'll have a signal on my dogs, and they're straight across this canyon from me. Well, they're 600 yards. Well, by the time you walk all the way to the bottom of that canyon and back to the up out of it to where those dogs are at, you're like, if I haven't walked a mile, I haven't walked an inch.
Yep.
You know? And so, yeah, I mean, it's amazing, and it's a bit humbling to, you know, get out there and actually end up in the middle of the fight with the bear and the dogs, and it makes you realize how weak and feeble we really are as compared to these animals. You know, they're just they're on another level that we, you know, as humans will never. I mean, between the fact, I think, between the fact that their survival day in and day out is strictly, you know, dependent on their ability to survive and fight off threats and this and that and the other thing, and the fact that they just live in that environment, and you know, they don't have a bed to go. I mean, they go crawl up under a rock shelf somewhere or whatever, and it just makes their environment just makes them ultra tough, and
yep.
You know, and they're evolved as such.
Well, it was probably a blessing that day that your older clients couldn't make the hike with you, because that could have turned out really bad.
Yeah. Well, I've got a happy ending to that story, actually.
Oh, really? I'd like to hear that.
Both of those gentlemen came back and hunted with us this fall.
Okay.
And they both got nice bears.
Awesome.
And one of them got his bear over bait, and one of them shot a bear that the dogs treed. And yeah, they were still just they were still of the same mindset as they were this spring. They were like, well, yeah, we're glad you killed that dang bear. That thing needed to go.
Yeah.
But anyway, so those gentlemen did both finally get their bear of a light. Well, because I'm pretty sure, I don't know, maybe they'll do it again, but they did finally get their opportunity to both get bears. So that was I was really glad that they came back and gave it another shot. I was afraid they'd be completely ruined on the idea of hunting bears in the mountains of Idaho after that.
Yeah, especially after seeing your guide get all torn up.
Yeah. Well, I was a little bit surprised that I got the one guy to go with us dog hunting again on the second hunt. And but you know, we got to a point where I think his partner had shot a bear the night before at a bait, and I was like, "Well, guys, I've got tomorrow available, and I'm going hunting either way. If you guys want to come up there and see what happens, you know, you're more than welcome. If you want to just go sit on a bait, that's fine too, or whatever." And the guy was like, I was like, you know, one thing about it, you know, we can just go see what happens, and if we can catch a bear and it's not too far from you know, from a road where you feel like you can make it, then you can go. And if that doesn't work out, then you can just go sit on a bait or whatever. And
yep.
So as it turned out, a couple of the dogs treed a bear just a couple hundred yards below the road, and he walked down there and harvested his bear. And so yeah, so it all ended up turning out with a bit of a happy ending, I guess.
Yeah, that's It's a good ending. Is there, is there like one takeaway that you learned from all this? I mean, obviously all the years that you've spent chasing bears and not just bears, I mean, just years in the woods chasing elk and deer and everything else. Is there like one takeaway from this whole thing that, I mean, something differently you might do, or maybe something that you're going to start doing from now on? I mean, definitely having that in reach with you. I've talked about it many times on the podcast, how important any handheld device as far as, sat phone or in reach is. That's like the number one thing I've always taken the backcountry with me. Mm-hmm. Is there anything else that's very important?
I guess I would just say, especially when you're hunting, and I mean, I think this is important no matter what animal you're hunting, because the animal deserves that respect.
Yep.
But it's especially important when you're hunting something that, and I mean, I really don't view black bears as being that dangerous. The situation I had with that bear, and I've only had a few situations where I even thought a bear was even trying to. It's always been with a wounded bear. I mean, I don't really view black bears as really being what I would call dangerous game per se, but they definitely still have the ability to be dangerous. I mean, they've got teeth and claws, and they whatever. But I would just say that whatever weapon you're going to use, whether it's a handgun, a bow, a pistol, or a shotgun, whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. Practice is the most important thing, and don't go out there. Like this Casull, the 454 Casull that I shot that bear with, I've killed quite a few bears with that gun years ago. But I haven't been shooting it lately and whatever. And, I've always been a pretty good pistol shot, so I just took for granted that, I would just make the shot. Well, I didn't. And I would attribute that to a great degree just because I haven't been practicing with it. I mean, I don't know when the last time I really took that gun out and just really shot it was, but whatever weapon it is, and I guess the other one being, if you're not 100% confident in whatever it is, bow, muzzleloader, shotgun, pistol, use a rifle.
Yep.
When I came to an epiphany many years ago. I actually had a kind of a bad deal go down with a bear with a 30-30. And I had a couple of deals where I'd shot bears with this 30-30 and just didn't do what I thought it should do. I was like, whatever. And then I got to looking at things, and I came to the realization that a 30-30 still has quite a bit more energy than a 44 Magnum does. And the 30-30 is not even really all that powerful of a round, but a 44 Magnum, it's a lot of it's in people's perceptions. People perceive the 44 Magnum, the old dirty hairy thing, as the most powerful handgun in the world, whatever.
Yep.
Well, it might be one of the most powerful handguns in the world, but it's still don't compare to a rifle.
No. Even a 500 Smith & Wesson is, if you look at the numbers and you look at a rifle, it's nothing.
It's nothing compared to a 338 Win Mag.
No. Or even a shotgun.
So,
or even
a shotgun, right?
Here in Wisconsin, you won't believe how many bears are shot with even a 20 gauge shotgun. I mean, a lot of guys use 12, but there's a lot of guys use 20 gauge. That's a powerful, it's short range where we're sitting baits and we're sitting 25 yards. Yeah, that's got some knockdown power for sure.
Well, and it's a twofold thing, because it's half of it is the how much more energy a rifle cartridge has shot out of a rifle barrel.
Yep.
than a handgun cartridge shot out of a handgun barrel. But the other half of it is how much more controllable and accurate a rifle is than a handgun. I've known some guys that could really shoot a pistol, and I would even put myself in that category 20 years ago. But you have to really practice a lot with a handgun to stay good with it. And no matter how good you are with a handgun, if you put half of the time into shooting a rifle that you're putting into shooting a handgun, you'll be more accurate by far than you. It's just the nature of the weapon.
Yep.
And like I say, I've killed a lot of game with a handgun, but I do attribute that as probably one of the main factors why I got bit by that bear, because I didn't have a rifle. I mean, if I would have had a rifle, I think this scenario would not have unfolded quite like it did. But I think that would probably be my number one takeaway from, what I should have done different, is I should have had a rifle. You go in on a dangerous animal like that, and then, like I say, I've done it before. But eventually, you roll the dice enough times, and eventually you're gonna roll snake eyes.
Yep, you're gonna run to that one ornery animal that does not want to die and wants to seek revenge on anything and everything in front of them.
Yeah. Well, and not only, that's a big part of what happened there, and that's why, when you originally posed the question about this on that bear hunting forum on Facebook about has anybody been attacked by a bear, and my comment was, I've never been attacked by, or I think I said, well, I've attacked a bear that fought back like hell or something like that, and that's really what this was. It wasn't, the bear didn't attack me. The bear was just trying to survive.
Yep.
And I put myself in a situation that, I got bit, but I was not really attacked by that bear. That bear didn't come hunt me down and attack me. It was more like the other way around. We'd been harassing that bear all day, and he finally said he'd had enough. And like I say, I think there's a good chance that bear knew I was there. And even when he raised up behind Trixie and whatever, he looked right over her back, right at me. And I wasn't moving, but I was only 20 or 30 feet away. And, a lot of people say bears have poor vision, and I think some of them do. But I've also seen bears, spot something from 100, 200, 300 or more yards away and be able to identify it as danger and leave.
Yeah.
So what I feel about those bears is that they actually have, their eyesight is a lot like a human's.
Their eyesight is way better. There's been some new studies that came out that I've read, and their vision is a lot like humans, and they can see a lot better than we perceive that they can. And their eyes are smaller because they feed low light conditions. That's why their eyes are smaller, and we think it's beady eyed and real small eyes. They can't see very well, but that's not true at all.
Well, and I think I have seen some bears that acted like they were visually impaired. But I've also seen plenty of instances where bears have spotted us from, long distances away and immediately identified us as danger and left. And, the example I always use is, my wife has needed glasses since she was like 5 years old.
Okay.
Just to be able to even make it to the bathroom, I started wearing readers when I was about 45 or 46, 47 years old. Up until then, I've had perfect vision my whole life. And even now I can see fine at distance. It's just up close. Well, I got no reason to think bears aren't really similar. I'm sure they're not all born exactly equal.
Yeah.
And I'm sure just like humans, there's some that are born with really good eyesight, and there's some that are born with not such good eyesight. And I draw a lot of parallels between humans and bears. I think they're more like, I mean, I hate to say this almost as a bear hunter myself, but I think, and then I don't equate them to being, you know, on other levels, bears are completely different than humans. They have, I mean, they've got no moral compass. They don't care about. They have no compassion. They're a wild animal still.
Yep.
But from a biological standpoint, they're a lot like humans in a lot of ways. You know, and one of them is that every bear has its own personality.
Oh, I believe that.
You know,
for sure.
If I would have ended up in that situation with a different bear, he would have ran the other direction. He was no way he was going to, you know,
yep.
whatever. But they're all individuals, and that's one of the reasons I say that I draw more parallels between bear behavior and human behavior than I can between humans and any other species I've ever been around in any great extent. I think they're a lot like us from a biological standpoint than any other animal. I mean, obviously, like you say, they're not human. They don't have compassion. They don't have any of that stuff that, they can't reason necessarily. I mean, I do think that they learn from their experiences fairly well. I mean, they're smart animals.
Yeah, I think they're very intelligent.
Yeah, but they don't quite have a sense of reason like humans.
No. Nope, they just want to eat, breed, and hibernate, and always try to be, keep themselves safe, basically.
Yep.
Protect themselves at all cost. And that's about it.
Yep.
Just survive. Mother Nature's pretty harsh on them.
Yep.
Like you say, that's what hardens them,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's part of what makes them so tough. And, especially you get these mountain bears out here, I mean, they live in a, extremely challenging environment. And, it's all almost straight up and down. I wouldn't say almost straight up and down, but a lot of really steep ground, and it doesn't even faze them. They just walk right up something that's, like, you or I would be on our hands and knees crawling
yep.
and, this, that, and everything. They just walk up it like it's nothing,
Yeah, definitely
because they've been doing it. Yeah. They've been doing it every day of their life. So.
Well, thank you, Leon. I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story today.
Yeah. Over the years of doing this for so long, and I've been doing it all my life and this and that, everything, I think perhaps I had gotten to a point of maybe getting a little too comfortable and maybe not giving a bear as much respect as I should. I think after that experience, it definitely renewed my respect for wild animals and for black bears, for sure.
Do you think it humbled you a little bit?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I would say it did. I mean, that amongst many other things that has happened to me throughout my life, but yes, I would say that it probably did a little bit, yes.
And that's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. It's a learning situation, something you learn from, and that's why we're here and doing this podcast, is so other people listen to this story can pick up tips and things that had happened to you. And maybe there's some bear hunters out there that are just getting into running dogs last couple of years and haven't had this situation happen yet, but maybe they could pick up some tips to help them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, it's kind of a unique scenario. I mean, that you're not likely to end up in a situation exactly. I mean, well, every situation is a little different.
Yep.
But if you're not a houndsman, it probably doesn't. You're probably not quite as likely to end up in a scenario like that. But I think it's for all of us, don't underestimate a bear. regardless of the situation, whether he's being chased with hounds, whether you wounded him off of a bait, or whatever else scenario might come up, whether your dog's barking at it in your yard and you got to go out there and try to run it off because it's wanting to get in your garbage or whatever it is. Don't underestimate that bear. They're not, I mean, like I said, I don't really view them as a real dangerous animal. But then again, on the other hand, they have the ability to be dangerous if you put them in the wrong situation. So it's just something that we should all keep in mind.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, thank you. According to the North American Bear Center, black bears have killed 61 people across North America since 1900. Your chances of being killed by a domestic dog, bees, or lightning are much higher. One of the safest places a person can be is in the woods. As hunters, we put ourselves in a much higher risk category. If you run bait for bears, you're putting yourself right at a bear's dinner table. They can be very aggressive if they feel you might be competing for his or her dinner. If you run dogs, you are chasing a bear who just wants to go about their business. So, they're more apt to react in a negative way. But the average outdoors man or woman shouldn't be afraid that there's a hungry bear behind every tree waiting to attack. But you definitely should be bear aware. I recommend carrying bear spray into the backcountry. And if you carry a gun, make sure you practice and can use it effectively. It's also not a bad idea to carry a cell phone, an inReach, a sat phone, or a similar device. With all that said, sometimes things just go south quickly. I know Leon has a healthy respect for bears, and I hope all you listeners do too. If you'd like to book a hunt with Leon at Clark Fork Outfitters to chase elk, deer, bear, moose, mountain lion, or bobcats, I'll leave a link in the podcast description on my Facebook page and Instagram. And as always, stay safe out there and enjoy all that Mother Nature has to offer. If you like what you heard today, click the subscribe button to hear more upcoming stories. If you or someone you know have a survival story you'd like to share, contact me at isurvivethewildoutdoors@gmail.com.